Good afternoon, everyone. We're still waiting a few members to join us, but we don't need to do that to hear from public comment in our presentations first, so we'll wait and adopt the agenda when we get to it. But I'm going to go ahead and start. This is the October 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. I'm Dustin Hillis, the chair of the committee. I've been joined by my colleagues to my left, Councilmember Norwood, and to my far right at the moment, Councilmember Antonio Lewis. We will start public comment. First, Greg Pridgeon.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Public Safety Committee. My name is Greg Pridgeon, and I am here on behalf of ordinance number 23-0-1168, which is held in the committee. We are working along with Mr. Paul Nair, who is the owner of Savvy Provisions. We've been in constant contact with Council members Alex Wan and Council member Matt Westmoreland. And so the substitute that is before you, or will be before you today, we would certainly like for you to continue to hold this substitute, because we are in conversation with NPUF, and Councilmember Wan wanted us to have continued discussions with them. And so once we've had our full review by NPUF, we would like for this paper to be reviewed here and action taken. So it'll be a little while. They don't meet till the middle of November. So we're looking forward to coming back to you with a very positive response from the NPU. The Neighborhood Association already has voted unanimously for the concept of what we're trying to do. And so we think that it'll be a positive addition to the community. So that's what I wanted to come and speak with you about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Honoré Jordan.
Give now to the Spirit of God to everyone that's here. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Luke 4th chapter 18 verse. The me on whom the Spirit of the Lord rests is Christ, the one whom God anointed to preach good tidings, good news, and proclaim liberty. James Griff do not proclaim liberty for me to be a Christ-like husband to me, but it's after the income that Jesus created, that Jesus' word created through me. The income is created to fight against the plans the enemy have to put you into bondage. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. Psalms 101, 7th verse. The ideal king sings to the Lord to keep his personal life pure and administers social justice. I'm sorry for lying to you about working, but God reminded me of what his purpose for us is. He hath believed, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. Mark 16 chapter 16 verse. Only faith, not baptism, is essential for salvation, as commission of baptism form the last clause it shows. I seek Jesus for me and you to fulfill his will for us, because God loves us more than we love ourselves. Thus shalt thou say unto him, the Lord says thus, behold, that which I have built will I break down, and that which I have planted I will pluck up, even this whole land. Jeremiah 45th chapter 4th verse. It is used in the scriptures to dramatize God's omnipotence, especially concerning Israel's deliverance or God's judgment. We need Jesus' deliverance plan. I know that I do. What about you? Do you have a better deliverance plan that will work? I doubt it. I'm looking at what China doing and what Russia doing, how they sending bombs, or Palestinians doing to Israel. Christ can stop those bombs. Can you? Christ has more power, and he showed that he has more power. He let you know his power. We want Christ to live holy in us, to be able to fight against Satan. We need his plan more than he need our plan.
That completes our public comment for today. We have been joined by our Vice Chair, Councilmember Byron Amos, and President Doug Shipman. Since we still do not have a quorum, since Councilmember Norwood is left, we'll just go ahead and start our presentations. First up is Atlanta Fire Rescue Department quarterly update. Chief Roderick Smith.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members, council chair or committee chair Hillis, council president Shipman, council members Lewis and Amos. It's my pleasure to be here today presenting the quarterly presentation for Atlanta Fire for the Public Safety Committee. It's a pleasure always to represent the men and women in the communities that we serve, and so we'll jump right into our presentation for today. Our goals and objectives for Atlanta Fire Rescue is to make sure that we have the safest working environment possible. We want to ensure that we meet all HR needs as well as focus on the enhancements and the facilities and fleet of Atlanta Fire Rescue. We will continue to work with the council to make sure that we are competitive and by nature as an employer. We want to make sure that we do regular reviews by emergency services that are provided to the city with you, as well as a regular review of conditions and needs of the fleet and facilities for Atlanta Fire Rescue. We'll start with our service metric, looking at our total calls for service year to date. Atlanta Fire Rescue is close to 25,000 calls for service during this period year to date. However, you will look below, you will see the situations found. So many calls come into 911. However, we rely more heavily on the reports that we get from the men and women that are responding to those calls. And so we show you more accurately the situations that we have found when we arrive on the scene. You will see that EMS calls are up at the top, and they represent roughly about 40% of the calls for service for Atlanta Fire Rescue. You will see the fire calls, which are numbered 31, which is up from last year this quarter. However, they are still less than 1% of our call volume. And you will see hazmat and other services. Other services represents about 56%. Those are those other calls that we respond to. The elevator calls, the car accidents, things of that nature that are not captured in the main category. So that clearly represents the largest number of calls for service. Out to the right, you will see a graph displaying so that you can see a correlation between fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. When we look at downtown inspections, our code enforcement men and women, they have responsibilities such as night observation, liquor license permits, special events, tents, and building permits. You will see the comparison between fiscal year 23 and 24 this quarter, first quarter. You will see a 65% change. We attribute that to hiring and getting closer to full staffing in our code enforcement area. We anticipate that these numbers will stay up, and we will continue filling those vacancies as they arise. Next, you will see our attrition rate or our vacancy rate for Atlanta Fire Rescue currently as of 9/30. The vacancy rate was just under 18%, or more accurately, 17.69. And you will see for this quarter, our hiring as it relates to sworn, we are at net 0. But for our civilian employees, we are at +7. Next, you will see the fruits of our recruitment efforts. You will see that we have 4 groups that are slated to either complete training or begin training. We have 2 regular recruit classes, 23-1 and 23-2, with 22 and 26 recruits respectively, graduating January 23rd, 2024, and June 23rd, 2024. We're proud to share with you that we have an accelerated recruit training class that currently has 3 members. It is a pilot, and we're looking to bring on members of the fire community that are already EMTs as well as sworn firefighters. And so this allows us to have a drastically reduced training schedule for them, and they will go from about 14 months to about 8 to 10 weeks before they can actually hit the field. And so this first group of 3 currently going through, and we anticipate once the word gets out, we will get many more that are willing to jump ship from other departments and come to Atlanta Fire Rescue. And lastly, you will see you are all familiar with the red shirts. Those are members that we hire prior to recruit class, and they start serving the community before they start going through training. We currently have 16 in that group, but we are anticipating hiring an additional 15 more before the end of next week. And so here we have the status of the fleet orders for downtown as well as the airport. There have been several questions about what do we have on order, and so this gives you a visual to see. We have the one custom engine that will be going into frontline service that is due to be delivered to us in December of this year. We have the tractor drone aerial, and you can see the dates. Some of them have been pushed out by the manufacturer. This is due to supply chain events. That aerial has been pushed out into July of '24. You will see 3 reserve pumpers that we have been ensured that they will be delivered before the end of this month, the beginning of next month at the latest, which would put us roughly about next week. As well as you will see an additional 3 pumpers that are scheduled to come in December of this year. All of the service truck orders have been pushed out to October of '24 and April of '25, and that is attributable to supply chain issues, and this is the latest report that we have. As you look at the aviation fleet, you will see that the last Rosenbauer in our fleet replacement at the airport was delivered July of this year, as well as 2 mini pumpers received in August, and the Battalion 7 vehicle is scheduled to be replaced in December. Next, we speak about new construction and renovations that we have going on in Atlanta Fire Rescue. We have been long awaiting the completion of Station 36, which is the Princeton Lakes Fire Station, which we are scheduled to receive possession of it at the end of October, and we are preparing to open that station in November, as well as our first EMS station, which is at Campbellton and County Line. It will be available in November as well. Thank you to the administration for assisting us with getting or inserting fire into the T-SPLOST to help us replace some much needed fire stations. We have fire station number 30, station 26, station 25, as well as station 31 that are in that T-SPLOST, and they are all with the architect right now in design phase. And so we are very anxious about moving forward with that. When we look at our renovation projects, you will see that we have recently completed the garage or the bay door program for Atlanta Fire Rescue, in which we have replaced the bay doors with high-speed opening doors, putting us on the same platform with all stations across the city for the stations that are in life cycle to be with us for 5 or more years. So we have just recently completed that, as well as we recently got possession of Station 12 on DeKalb Avenue back after its renovation. There were some structural repairs as well as some ADA upgrades that were done at that station, and it is now open. Station 22, that one is near and dear to my heart and many because it has been going on for a very long time. I'm proud to say that that station is coming out of the ground very well. The progress is there, and we have been given a tentative completion date of July of '24, so we're looking forward to cutting the ribbon on that station. And last but not least, Station 14 has a renovation that is pending, where we reconfigure the living spaces as well as the bay. The first planning phase has been completed, but we do not have a tentative completion date on that. But as soon as we have that, we will make sure that it is included in our regular report. As you can see here, just a couple of examples that even during that first quarter of the summer months going into here the fall, Atlanta Fire has been very active in the community, everything from food drives to Pops Up in the Park. We partnered with the Hispanic Heritage Celebration, back to school drives. We've participated co-jointly with APD, our partners, in Blue Mass, as well as we do our boot drives, and we are firmly rooted in our Year of the Youth program with our cadet graduations. And to date, we have approximately 4 to 5 members who have either gone through our cadet program or who have been interns with the City of Atlanta, who have now moved on to full-time or gainful employment with Atlanta Fire Rescue. And just to share a few of our recent accomplishments as we close, we recently opened the Aviation EMS Clinic out at Hartsfield-Jackson in the atrium, as well as we have had 27 members that have completed the NPQ Fire Officer 2 certification, because we are always pushing professional development. Job fair that was hosted by Public Safety, we participated in it at our public safety headquarters, as well as we continue to support the city's efforts at our cooling and our warming stations. During the summer, we supported the cooling stations, and we, in the last 3 months, have inducted 16 new Atlanta firefighters into our ranks, and we continue to host summer youth employment for our cadets in our intern program. And with that, I am here to answer any questions you may have about the operations of Atlanta Fire Rescue. Along with me, I have our first deputy, as well as our chief of operations and our chief of technical services to assist to answer your questions.
Thank you, Chief Smith. We have been joined by Councilmember Keisha Shawn Waits. Welcome. I'll get us kicked off with a few questions, and then colleagues, if you have any questions or comments, just please indicate with your speaker button. On the third page, so there's been a over doubling of fire calls. Is there something attributed to that, or just is that an anomaly?
It's an anomaly at this point. We are monitoring it closely to try to see if we do have some trends going in any specific communities. As of yet, we have not identified any. It's just call of the season, if you will.
And then the almost equal percentage increase in technical rescue, is that attributed to the flooding of the past few months?
Yeah, so the irony of that is we did have some floods and some floods during that season. Those calls were individual calls. And so we don't attribute them to any trend changes. It's just based on the climate and the weather at that time. And fire calls and the technical rescue calls don't have any correlation.
On your, and I may have asked this before, I know I've asked it of APD, but when you calculate your vacancy rate, are you counting the, looks like 67 recruits that obviously on paper they've been hired, however they're not actively protecting the city, but are they still counted when you calculate that vacancy rate?
Yes, they are counted in our numbers.
On the facilities, why is 22 listed as a renovation? Do you know?
That was a typo.
Okay. I'd gotten word that a certain station had been shut down for a pest infestation. What station was that?
That was Station 31.
Where's that located?
It is at Fairman Road.
Okay.
That station has since been reopened. We had the pest control team to go out. Well, of course, we have a contract. The pest control team went out and they did what they do, spraying and mitigating, whatever. So that station is open now.
And that is technically handled by Dean?
Yes.
And did they have regular pest control at our stations? I know I've experienced this
Yes,
at one of my stations
so there is a
before,
pest
but-
control contract with Dean. However, our people will intervene. We have an assistant chief over technical services that provides a more responsive nature to our needs. And so when they call him, he's the direct contact that gets Dean involved with handling the emergencies, if you will, at our facilities. And so they have been notified.
And on the new construction stations, which of these listed are fully new stations? They're not replacement stations. I believe 36 is one of them, correct?
36 and 37, the rest of them are replacements.
And then 37 will be an EMS-only station?
Correct.
And 36, that will be staffed by one of the frontline engines that's currently on order?
That is correct.
And then 37, what will be stationed there? Obviously EMS units, but what specifically?
So Station 7 will be the base for the 2 ambulances that will go in service, as well as it will be the home base for 4 to 5 quick or rapid response units.
Thank you for that. You mentioned issues with the fleet and have detailed the current orders we have, which are, of course, taking some time to come in. What is, and I know it's very fluid and changes day to day, but what is the current status of how many in our fleet, specifically getting into our most used units, the ladder trucks and the engine pumpers? How many citywide do we have down right now?
So the total number down right now is 17. That was the latest number that I have.
You know the breakup between ladders and engines on that?
What's that breakup there? 8 engines and 9 ladders.
And then both the reserve and the frontline Squad 4 rescue, those are both still down?
Yes, sir.
And then I know to flex and to strategize and get some of our lesser used units into the territory of these stations that have higher call volumes, you've kind of flexed some engines and trucks around. How many engines and trucks have been relocated throughout the city at this current time?
So it's kind of difficult to give you that number because it's very dynamic. But just to give you a snapshot of what's going on, we have 3 stations out of 36 that are completely temporarily closed, which is a soft closing for us based on the staffing and the equipment. 3 stations. The other stations have equipment that has been repositioned to ensure that we have our stations occupied at all times 24/7. And so when I get into the numbers, like I can tell you that engine 10 is using mini pumper 23 at their station. Station 7 is at station 21. Engine 7 is at station 21. We have a couple of stations that have engines only, such as 25 and 29, as well as the 38. And so it's very dynamic in terms of how we move it. But the Chief of Operations can go into detail, if you would choose, about the strategy of how we move equipment on a day-to-day basis.
Understood. So you said how many stations are totally closed?
That'll be 3.
3?
Yes. Station 30, Station 22, and Station 23.
So just putting this into the real world and using an example I'm most familiar with, of course, is my own district. It's the city council district that has most fire stations, 5. So I live in First Due 28's territory. That's an engine company only. It's still thankfully functional and is stationed by its assigned engine. 22, I believe, has been relocated to 16.
Correct.
38, the truck is out, but the engine is still
Yes,
in 38 and active.
that is correct.
And let's see, 23 is one of the ones that is closed. And that's because it's totally out or it's been relocated somewhere else.
It's totally out.
Okay. And then 8, I believe has been repositioned, engine 8
It's at Station 11.
as an 11. but the battalion chief vehicle is still stationed at 8.
Correct.
And then even though they're not in my district, I also have first due territory of 26, which has a ladder truck that is still in service, but its ladder is not operable. Does it have an engine?
26, yes, they do.
And it is in service at that station?
Yes.
And then I believe 16 covers some of my district too.
My apologies, 26 is out of service.
26.
Yes, they're having transmission
Engine is out of
issues.
service.
Correct. But the ladder is in place, but the waterway of the tower is inoperable.
And then 16 located in Vice Chair Amos's district, but covers some of my district as first due. Its engine is out, but engine 22 is covering for it.
Correct.
And truck 38 is totally out of service.
Yes.
So a fire happens, and you can get your operations chief to go through this with me. Fire happens at Councilmember Hillis's house or Mayor Dickens's house, where I believe both in Division 2, Battalion 2. What is the response to my house and first due 28's territory? What would the response look like?
So I can tell you the overarching goal with the strategy for how we decide what equipment is going to move and what stations are out of service is we try to make sure that none of the territories are contiguous. So you won't find stations that are right next to each other that are out of service unless it's absolutely necessary. And so what happens is we send the closest 3 engines and the closest 3 aerials. A good example, like you spoke of in your territory, Station 22 is closed. However, Engine 16 is in service, Engine 28 is in service, and Engine 38 is in service. And so it's almost like a swarming effect where they're still coming, but they're coming from areas that may not be at that particular fire station, but they are still coming.
And so 2 things. And maybe it's one that was just completely necessary, but I believe both 8 and 23, which are adjacent to my district, neither of them have either engines or trucks. Is that not correct?
That is.
They have a battalion chief
Battalion chief is at Station 8.
but-
Correct.
that doesn't have water capabilities. And I know, the gold standard for a 1-alarm fire is, you send 3 ladders, 3 trucks. Right now, I think we're down to 2 or 3 fully operational ladder trucks throughout the whole city. So you're having to do this modified response where you maybe send 1 ladder to a 1-alarm fire instead of the 3, but you send extra engines.
Correct. And so we have some smaller trucks as well where some people are running out of the stations in dual cab pickup trucks, things of that nature. So the personnel are coming to the call. It's just you don't have the ladder trucks there.
And so, for example, in Engine 28's first due territory, the nearest ladder truck that would respond, that would have at least partial ladder waterway capabilities would be truck 25, that I believe can only still operate in rescue mode, that has been moved from District 11 in Southwest Atlanta to downtown District 3.
So it's at Station
for the
1,
city.
and it's my understanding that truck 25 is operating at 100% capacity.
So obviously a situation we don't want to be in with the state of our fleet. And as I've mentioned before in committee and to you, that we didn't get here overnight or within this administration or even in the one administration before this. This has been an issue going on for over a decade.
Yes.
But we, as the caretakers and lawmakers of the city, have to address this, and it's not going to be an overnight solution. It's not going to be a solution that arrives in,
Correct.
a year or 2 years. But if we put the order in today, I'd rather it be 3 years from today than 3 years from a year from now. But we, want to work with the administration in getting this addressed. But it is a issue that I'm sure it does you more than anyone, but it keeps me up at night, very honestly.
You have no idea.
I've had nightmares about incidents happening and have seen incidents actually happen in my district where people have contacted me about issues with response. But I know you are doing all you can as the fire chief to modify the response plan, but we do need to see more action when it comes to getting with the reserve fleet built up, and also getting all of our frontline status or frontline engines and trucks replaced. I know I looked at some stats last night, and I believe the average year of our fleet model is about 2014 or 2015. And looking at a lot of the cities we'd like to compare ourselves here in the Southeast, they're up into 2017, 2018 average frontline fleet a year. So more to be discussed with that. There's legislation pending in FEC, Finance and Executive Committee about that. But at this time, I'll defer to my colleagues. We have been joined by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond. First, I have President Shipman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief. Just a few questions. One, I'm sorry if I missed it in Chair Hillis's questions. In the budget committee, or in the budget presentations earlier, you talked about an EMS-only station in South Buckhead that would be opening. Could you just remind us the status of that?
So we are in the process now of trying to locate some property to put that station, but that is the next one to come up, which will be in South Buckhead. And so we're looking somewhere between Piedmont up to Peachtree, just to give you some ideas of the area.
Thank you. Do you know what the inspection, you talked about on the service metrics, the downtown inspections were up because there have been more positions that have been filled, and so you had more capacity to do those inspections. Do you happen to know the vacancy rate among that group right now?
I do not know the vacancy rate right now, but I can get that number for you.
That'd be great. I mean, obviously, that's a good news story, being able to do those inspections. So I want to make sure that we give you what you need as far as personnel to continue that trend. Third question. Where'd my questions go? When you have on the page around the previous page on service metrics, the first page on service metrics, is there a way for you in the future to break out the other services into some of the bigger categories? Obviously, with a 12,700 number, that's a very big number. I mean, I would be curious, car wreck responses, some of the other bigger categories, maybe just break those out into 2 or 3 of the major ones for us.
Definitely.
So we sort of see those trends. That'd be very helpful. And then finally, you talked about the pilot program around the experienced firefighters. I'm just curious, as you see that growing, where do you expect those experienced firefighters to be coming from? Where are we seeing them?
The metro area.
Okay. So basically, this is from other jurisdictions that we're bringing in and then accelerating their training.
Correct. So we're looking to get as close as possible to people who have the relevant experience that we have. And so although you may be a state certified firefighter, your tenure on your department may not have the type of action or experience that we need. And so we're looking for more seasoned firefighters that are wanting to leave where they are and come to our department.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Definitely. Colleagues, they had to reboot the system, but next I have Councilmember Waits.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation, Chief. So I wanted to know, I'm looking at the report, and when you say in production phase, I'm going to assume that means ordered, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what is the total number of engines and fire trucks that we've ordered for this specific fiscal year?
We have ordered, I'd have to look to see where they are fiscal year-wise, because I know that we were approved for FY22 to get an additional 3 engines and 3 ladders, and for FY23 to get an additional 3 engines and 2 ladders. Our original order in 21 was for 1 custom engine and 1 custom ladder. Everything has been ordered with the exception of the 2 service trucks on the end, and that's because we have a vendor complaint out right now.
Okay, so given the shortage that we have in the number of vehicles that are out of service, is it possible that we can double up on the orders so that it will hit, because I'm looking at some of this as December 2023, that's fine, but July of 2024, I think that puts us in a safety dynamic. And so what is it that we can do to increase the number that we're ordering right now, to the chairman's point, so that we can, at some point catch up? What are we doing now?
So we have been in meetings with the administration as well as, and Chairman Hillis has met with us as well. And we are looking at We met with the CFO as well to talk about where we are funding-wise and what we can actually order. We have a tentative fleet replacement plan that we're looking at. We are already in cycle because we included the equipment that has been ordered, which is 11. And so the goal is to aggressively order as much equipment as possible. However, we have to figure out what the funding is going to be.
Thank you so much. And finally, Station 30, I believe, is in the Cleveland Avenue corridor.
Yes, ma'am.
Metropolitan Corridor, which is in District 12. There are a number of apartments and multifamily units in that area. So what station is servicing that specific community?
So that engine is up at Station 34, which is further up the road. So they are still responding to the calls over that area.
And why is it closed?
It's closed because of equipment failure, engines being down across the city.
Not having a unit, a fire truck there?
Correct.
Okay. So can I get a report that indicates where, because I think you said there were 3 that were down, correct?
Correct.
Where are those? What districts are they in?
Hold on one second, I can tell you. Station 30, as you mentioned. Station 22.
Where is that located?
It's in District 9. 22 is right there on Hollywood Road at the split.
Okay, so can we have an offline conversation regarding those 3
Definitely.
areas? And then lastly, what type of MOU or agreement do we have with other surrounding cities and counties where we can possibly utilize their units and apparatuses, given that they may have an overflow, based upon the interview that I saw on television where we're the only ones who seem to be in this situation, which I find troubling?
So,
And this is not directed at you.
well, I understand.
You know, this
I
is the
understand.
process.
So in the fire service, we have standing MOUs with all of the contiguous jurisdictions. And so we lend resources regularly. It's not a new thing. And so it's a phone call away or an emergency call away, depending on if it's automatic or mutual aid. We have some units that are not physically our units that are built into our system that utilize our radio system and their radio system as well. So they become a part of our initial response. And so that's nothing new. Those agreements are in place and they are automatic renewing agreements until one jurisdiction decides to pull out. But we have an agreement with every jurisdiction surrounding us.
And whose decision was it to close the 3 stations that are closed?
That is an operational decision that comes out of the division office each morning based on what equipment is in service and what the staffing numbers look like.
Okay, does that lie with the administration or with your office?
With my office.
Okay, perfect. Can we chat offline?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lewis.
And I got 30, 22, and what's the other station?
That was closed. 23
And where's that one located?
on Howell Mill.
So that's 9 as well? That's District 9 as well? So the 3 are all in your area. My question around 30 was, when is, so the community, we need 30 open, and I'll tell you why. The lights, it lights up an entire corner. The element that's going on across the street from where 30 is now, we've never had before until 30 closed. And so I need 30 to light back up that corner as soon as possible. My question, the engine that's at 34, did it come from 30?
Yes.
And so why would we move an engine from 30, with 30 being fully staffed, to now move the folks over to 34?
It was a logistical decision. It was nothing against 30
It just helped
versus-
other stations out as well. I'm okay with that if that's the reason why. I'm okay with that. Update on Station 30, the upgrades.
So the replacement station,
Yes, sir.
it's in design with the architects right now.
Yeah, we really need it because, once again, I know what it's going to do to the community. It's going to rejuvenize the community. I need it to ASAP,
It's at the top
particularly
of the
with the
list.
station being down right now. So thank you.
Yeah.
Chief, any other questions for Chief Smith? I'll just, of course, reiterate, continue working together to address this fleet issue. I know there are, national issues with, shortages and vendor issues, but, I've looked at a number of, as I mentioned, our comparable cities, and Nashville has placed 32 apparatus on order. They've received about half of them so far. Charlotte has, I believe, 21 that they've received in the past couple years and have more coming in. And I was just reading an article from this month where Indianapolis went under a 4-year agreement with a vendor, and it has 20 apparatus just in the first year. Hope that you can work with CFO Ball and the administration in crafting a plan to get us a heavy front-loaded order to address these lingering fleet issues, and we can get back into shape. I would say soon, but
Soon as
soon as
possible.
we can.
Definitely.
Councilmember Lewis.
The only thing I want to add is we are Atlanta, and so we need to stick our chests out and go. I feel like on this side, we've passed so much legislation to make sure that public safety get the funding that it needs, so much so that we've had to spend a night in this building before. And so we are Atlanta. Let's stick out our chest and let's take care of our people. Like Station 30 just had their truck moved to partner with other neighborhoods, so 34 now is liver. We need our stuff back because we got an element going on that they talking to me about in the police. We're trying to put out an element that they don't care about that stuff. They don't care about that. They see their kids walking past that in the morning, and we know that that station was open and folks just weren't out there. And so let's be Atlanta. I know we've invested to my dissatisfaction sometimes funding to make sure that we had the stuff that we need. We just need to see it happening. We're Atlanta. Thank you.
We appreciate the support. Definitely.
Final thoughts.
Councilmember Waits.
Yes, sir. So what is the total amount that you think we need to fund all of the deficiencies? What amount of money do you think that is?
I can't give you a ballpark number right now because I have to look and see. The prices are constantly moving, if you will.
But it certainly wouldn't exceed $67 million. Would you not agree?
You said
It
67?
would not exceed $67 million. Would you not agree with that?
No, I wouldn't say that high, but we could work with that number.
You can work with that. Okay.
All right, any other questions from colleagues? All right, thank you very much, Chief Smith.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Atlanta Police Department's quarterly report. Chief Darren Shearbaum, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. President Shipman, Councilmember Bond, Councilmember Norwood, Councilmember Waits, and Councilmember Lewis, it's always a pleasure to join you in thanking you for your partnership with the Atlanta Police Department as we strive to create safe neighborhoods all across our city, and appreciate all you do to support the men and women that serve this department both in our civilian and our sworn capacities. Before we start with the quarterly presentation, and during this presentation I have a number of examples for you of the work being done of the men and women of the police department, I wanted to start by addressing the current state that we have in the world that is affecting us right here in Atlanta. Over the last week, this department has been very engaged in our Jewish communities as well as our Muslim communities, ensuring that our schools, our synagogues, and our mosques, the community centers know that they have the protection of the Atlanta Police Department. And during those visits, I've heard a lot of concerns about individuals over their safety, the safety of their communities. And we are working very closely with our federal partners as well as our regional partners to ensure that this agency is engaged throughout the city. And so whether you have a location in your council district you're concerned about, please let me know. But this department continues to be very engaged in that area to ensure that everyone in Atlanta, Georgia is safe. I'm going to start with our quarterly presentation for the third quarter of the year. I want to start by going back to Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend is one of the most visited weekends in Atlanta, Georgia. That's because we have a number of events. Dragon Con, Black Gay Pride, we have the kickoff of the football season, and a number of other events. It is our most visited weekend. During this time, we had our officers deployed throughout the city, many of them concentrated in areas we knew we would have a lot of visitors. I'm glad to report that in all of those areas where Atlanta literally welcomed the world, we had no significant incidences occurring. A lot of that was because of our camera infrastructure, the officers out on the beat, our analysts behind the scenes, our 911 dispatch center, as they worked to ensure that we kept the city safe as individuals came to enjoy their time here. While this was just a couple days outside of the quarter, I did want to note the success we had during Pride weekend. We are returning to the pre-pandemic numbers, attending both the festivities and the parade. And during this time, this is an all-out effort for the police department. We believe we had over 100,000 people lined along the parade route and in the park on Sunday. During that time, we had officers from our SWAT, from our aviation, K-9, our crime suppression units that were all throughout the area, ensuring two things were occurring. Individuals were able to express their First Amendment right to assembly and protest if they so desired, but to also ensure that everyone that attended the event was safe. And I'm glad to report again, 4 days of activity spread throughout the city, the extension of the bar hours on Sunday, and a large amount of incidents throughout the area. We had no incidents that occurred in that area. And I do want to thank our partners from the Sheriff's Department, the Georgia State Patrol, Fulton County Police Department for assisting us. And I also want to acknowledge all the men and women in our 911 center who worked very hard to assist everyone that called and asked for the assistance of their police department during that time. I'm going to start by looking at where the crime trends currently stand in our city. As you will note, as we've reported in the last 2 report outs, we continue to see a reduction in crimes against persons in Atlanta, Georgia, which we're very appreciative of. We see reductions around homicides, rapes, aggravated assaults, persons shot. We also continue to see reductions around robberies. In fact, there's only 2 areas that we see an increase in crime over this time last year, and that is in the area of shoplifting as well as in motor vehicle theft. And there's going to be a slide shortly where I will show you how Kias and Hyundais have impacted this city. I recently attended a conference of chiefs of police, major city chiefs across the country. Every major city is contending with this challenge, and we'll have a slide on that very shortly. When I briefed you in the end of the second quarter, overall crime in the city was up 4%. So I'm glad to show you that we have another % reduction at that time and go into the strategies that has allowed us to see the positive trends that you have on the screen. I know I speak with many of you anytime after we've had a homicide in your district, so I wanted to touch where we see our homicide trends currently at. Right now, we have a reduction of 18% in the city. You can see where that compares to this time in 2022 as well as in 2021. As I've stated before from this podium, the #1 reason an individual will lose their life in Atlanta, Georgia is over an escalating dispute. And it has not changed from the last time I stood at this podium. Fights over parking spaces, fights over perceived infidelity in a relationship. We've had individuals that have lost their life or the most ridiculous arguments because a gun came into a moment of anger. And it is very difficult for this agency to be in every living room, as I've said before. This is where we do depend on civic organizations, faith-based organizations, the mayor's Office of Violence Reduction to help us craft strategies where the police department cannot be in those intimate settings and where every one of us as an Atlantan has an obligation to de-escalate situations that we can have influence over friends and family members when it becomes heated. But this department, to be able to bring about the reductions in homicides as well as aggravated assaults, we have been focusing on the 3 areas that your police department does have influence over, and that is gangs, guns, and drugs in our city. And I would like to note as we move through the reduction in homicides, every one of our zones in the city is seeing a reduction of homicides with the exception of 1, and that is Zone 4, which has had 3 more homicides this year over this time last year, but every other zone we've seen a reduction in all across the city. And I want to commend all the men and women of this department and our partners for the work in that area. There are geographic areas of the city that data tells us are most likely over others to see violence. Handgun violence, rifle violence. And there are individuals who have warrants issued for their arrest that if we do not bring them before court, that they are likely to use a handgun in these geographic areas. As has been reported before, we execute operations taking intelligence and creating partnerships, both our regional, state, and federal partners to go into those areas to bring about violence reduction. And so I want to brief you just quickly on our efforts through Operation Heat Wave, which concluded just a couple weeks ago, and we've now started on the fall-winter rendition of the success of that. During that time across the city, we made 96 arrests in areas that we know were prone to gun violence. Out of those areas spread across the city, we removed 62 guns from the hands of individuals that were likely to use them, and we brought the gang charge against gang members 18 times. We arrested 41 known gang members in those areas. The federal prosecutor just down the street has adopted 8 of those cases for federal prosecution, which will continue to help us keep Atlanta safe and moving in the right direction. And on the screen, you will note a number of our partners that every other week are joining us right here on the streets of Atlanta in all 245 of our neighborhoods. That is the FBI and the GBI and the ATF, the Georgia State Patrol, East Point Police Department, the State's Attorney's Office, Fulton County, the Attorney General's Office, as well as the Sheriff. And we want to thank every one of those agencies that partner with us to make our city safe. And then every single zone of the city, all of our specialized units come together in these times to go into neighborhoods that we know if we are not present there, we will see crime occurring. I want to talk just briefly on our effort to increase warrant arrests in the city. Our investigative team works very hard out of public safety headquarters and other precincts throughout Atlanta to identify individuals that are breaking into cars, stealing cars, that are committing armed robberies, a variety of crimes. These individuals will likely continue to offend unless they are brought before court. And so this past year, we've done a couple things. We created an app for your phone that allowed officers to more quickly track who is wanted in our city, what types of crimes are they committing, and what areas of the city are they operating in. So when our officers leave their precinct, public safety headquarters, and go into any of your districts, they know what individuals they should be alert for. And then we also, thanks to the support of the mayor and this body for approving the budget, each of our officers in field operations have been issued phones so they can have quick access to that application and other tools that we provide to them. And during this time, you will see that so far this year, we've had a 132% increase in persons that have been arrested for having an outstanding warrant in the city. And this is important because there's a clear connection between individuals that are already committing crimes that will likely keep reoffending. And that is almost in every crime category that we see across Atlanta, Georgia, and particularly around domestic violence warrants, where individuals that are prone to committing acts against a person in an intimate relationship has oftentimes seen to go on to other more serious crimes, including homicides. I'm going to give you an example of why warrants arrests matter. This is an individual, Mr. Siegel, who is well known to the Atlanta Police Department despite his rather young age. He had recently just been released from prison for breaking into 70 cars across the region, many of them right here in Atlanta, Georgia. It became known to our investigators that he was engaged yet again in criminal activity and actually had arrest warrants issued for him for having committed a home invasion, 4 aggravated assaults, burglary, as well as probation violations. And the officers, when they deployed on a detail, this in Zone 1 of the city, were able to locate him. And despite a foot chase and him running into a home where he attempted to conceal himself, the officers were able to craft an apprehension that did not bring any harm to Mr. Siegel, the neighbors who immediately joined that residence, or the officers that were executing that. This one warrant arrest will have an impact in many neighborhoods as the cycle of violence against our citizens are in fact broken. Going to look at the aggravated assaults. What you can see on your report, we have been fortunate to see a reduction in shootings over the last 2 years in our city. You can see since 2023 and 2022, the reductions of 33% and 18% that we're seeing. And then over the last 28 days, we've seen a 27% of reduction in persons being shot in the city. We also divide this into categories. Some of these are escalated disputes. Some of them are robbery attempts and other crimes. We are able to disrupt the robbery crews that are working in the city. Because robbery, right after you have 46% of our homicides in the city are motivated for escalated dispute, and then you drop down in this, I believe, around 16% where robbery becomes the next #1 motivator for an individual that commits a homicide in our city. And I'm going to talk about one robbery investigation. We had a series of robberies that were occurring along the Martin Luther King corridor. And our investigators became aware that they were likely being committed by the exact same individual in that space. The warrants were issued for a number of robberies, and this individual was connected to be 13 of those robberies. This was Mr. Javarius Montgomery. We were fortunate because one of our civilian SWOR members in the fingerprint lab was able to connect a fingerprint off of a vehicle that was recovered to be able to identify Mr. Montgomery as the perpetrator. We were able to secure warrants for him. Out seeking him, he was arrested at 2909 Campbellton Road after he jumped from a second-floor window in an attempt to evade capture by officers of this police department before he could return to the Martin Luther King corridor to again continue his robberies, which have a high risk of an individual being shot. This Mr. Montgomery is also now a suspect in up to 6 different robberies in adjoining jurisdictions in the area. So the tenacity, the hard work of our investigators, a dedicated civilian member in our fingerprint unit being able to lift the fingerprint and process it from this vehicle was key in removing someone, Mr. Amos, that is no longer in your district on the Martin Luther King corridor targeting individuals. I did mention a while ago the Kia Hyundai scourge that we continue to deal with. You will see here that we are at a 485% increase in Kias and Hyundais being stolen over this time last year. In fact, if we remove Kias and Hyundais and we go back to the pattern that you see here, crime in Atlanta would be down 2%. All across the board, as opposed to the 3% that we're up now if we return to the pre-Hyundais and Kias. And so we continue to work in this area. We continue to distribute clubs throughout many of your districts. We still have some left. You would like to partner with the police department to get those out. And we want to thank the mayor for bringing in Kia to our city. There is no Kia dealership in Atlanta, Georgia, and it is hard for hardworking members of this city to be able to go out and to be able, as they work, to be able to get the fix done on their car, the patch that is needed. And thank the mayor for bringing Kia into the city, where during the last quarter, Kia did in fact provide that patch free of charge throughout everyone that showed up. I'm going to talk briefly on traffic stops in the city. I often receive from each of you and from your offices concern about speeders in your neighborhood, individuals that are maybe driving unsafe. That makes it a public safety concern, and I also want to highlight the work being done by the officers throughout the city. You will note that so far this year we've had 93,000 traffic stops all throughout Atlanta. As we address everything from speeding, school zone issues, also the other traffic matters that you all bring to our attention. You will notice that in the vast majority of those, we ask for voluntary consent of the citizen to address the issue that is at hand. Stop speeding, correct the violation of the vehicle, makes the vehicle unsafe. Our first goal is always going to be voluntary compliance of the citizen to contribute to our city. And then in the remainder, 15%, we do issue citations where individuals, their acts was egregious or acted in a manner that had a dire impact on our public safety. So always want to note the presence of our officers all throughout the city, working to ensure that the traffic laws are upheld in the city and we are a safe city to drive in, walk in, bike in, wherever we may go. But these traffic stops sometimes lead to other and bigger crimes. This is one that actually happened in the downtown space. An officer working to address traffic concerns in that area saw a vehicle that had a drive-out tag that appeared somewhat off in the manner that it was constructed. When they pulled the vehicle over, the individual tried to run. We was able to get him into custody. We noticed that the vehicle had been stolen actually out of the Buckhead neighborhood in May through a fraud scheme. And inside the vehicle, we saw a number of pieces of evidence of fraud that was being perpetrated on citizens of this city by the individual, and the identity theft that was occurring. We were able to take a number of items out of that vehicle, stop his efforts of targeting residents of Atlanta, and also take him into custody for an outstanding warrant that he had issued for his arrest out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, for cruelty of children. So we do see when we are in neighborhoods making them safe through traffic enforcement, that we also see other crimes being interrupted and individuals being brought out of the cycle of targeting. I want to talk about narcotics for a moment. I've had the opportunity to address this body for now about a year and a half. This will always be a common theme that you'll hear from me. If you have a drug dealing operation in your district, you have a ticking time bomb for violence. When I look at the homicide reports for the year, over the last 2 months, I've read twice where an individual lost their lives because someone came to that house looking for the guns, the drugs, or the money that was there for an illegal drug dealing operation. So far this year, officers of the department have closed down a number of drug dealing operations that are present. And this is just one that I have for you. We've shut down 62 locations like this. That takes a lot of work by our investigators to be able to develop probable cause to say there's drug dealing operations. This particular location was in Zone 6 of our city. You will see the large amounts of meth and cocaine and Xanax and MDMA that was taken out of that neighborhood. You will see the 3 individuals that we arrested that were bringing an element of danger to that neighborhood and take them out of cycle. Because of the efforts of our narcotics operation and our partners, we've arrested 88 individuals like the 3 that you see on the screen. We've taken 97 firearms out of the hands of individuals that were either going to expand their drug operation or they were going to defend their drug operation. We have seized over $99,000 in U.S. currency. And as I stated before, 61 other locations just like this one has been shut down. And this is going to be a key effort for us to make sure you continue to see a reduction in persons shot in Atlanta, Georgia, and you see a reduction of individuals that are committing homicide in our city. These are dangerous locations that we have present in any of your districts, and I want to thank everyone for the work. And on almost every one of these, there's a concerned citizen that says, not in my neighborhood, that will use Crime Stoppers. They will use our anonymous tip line. They oftentimes use your office to let us know there's a concern. And so please continue to send to those us. Understand that sometimes it just takes a while, but we'll use everything in our effort to make sure no one has to live next door to this wherever they live in any of our 245 neighborhoods of our city. I will always say wherever I go that the three best crime fighters are and always will be a stable home life, education, and economic opportunity. It is because of those society failures that you saw the slides that I just showed you. But I'm happy to report that your police department and its partners are equally engaged in making sure that we're investing in those things so we don't see crime in our city down the road. Just going through a few real quick. Since the last quarter, we were very engaged in at the PJs and Pancakes, which is a youth engagement event in Zone 5. You will see our PAL cheerleading team that works throughout the city to make sure young men and women have the ability to come to a PAL center of the city to be able to provide them the stability that they need, the education, the economic opportunity. You will see that we were involved in the Public Safety Day up at Peachtree Methodist Church up in Zone 2. And we were with a group of preschoolers ensuring that they were having a positive interaction with the police, that we are respecting who we're protecting, and they have a positive engagement with us. These are efforts that are going on consistently each week. Even if you are not assigned to POW or one of our community engagement initiatives, we expect every member of the police department to be looking for opportunities to engage with everyone that we protect in this city. We're also very proud of our partnership with the WNBA that we are working with, and we're proud of this new thing. This is our basketball camp that you see here. We have the opportunity for our officers to engage to talk about self-esteem issues, protecting yourself from human trafficking and other areas. We had 45 girls that participated in this. This is open to all throughout the city of Atlanta, so watch our social media postings and our emails. If you can connect from your district into these areas, we ask you to do so. Each one of these participants, because of our partners, also received a $150 gift card for a shopping spree at Academy Sports. And so this is another area that we want to be able to be engaged in as we protect the city with our partners. I also want to touch while I'm here on our engagement in the parks. Some of you may have been able to go out to Piedmont Park just a few weeks ago when the Symphony ASO performed there. It was a wonderful event, but wherever you move through Atlanta, Georgia, our parks are being visited by individuals that are holding reunions and class events there. We also, some of you may have went to Oakland Cemetery just this past weekend for their events for the season. Our Mounted Patrol is the designated patrol unit from this department. We have visited 213 parks throughout the year, some of them multiple times. We also deploy our bike patrols and our crime deterrent units from the zones in these areas as we have large events. And I want to thank the zone commanders for their work, as well as our Apex unit as they work with Major Singh, Commissioner Cutler and his group to ensure that we keep the parks of our city the safest places they can visit. They are certainly our backyards, and we want to make sure the backyard of Atlanta, and we want to do our part to keep it safely, and also the expansion of the camera systems that are working there. I hope you take note of the new design of an Atlanta police car. I hope you're seeing this, ladies and gentlemen, in two places. You will be seeing them in multiple driveways throughout our city. I'm pleased to report that we now have take-home cars in every single zone of Atlanta, Georgia. The mayor has committed to address what used to be the #1 reason an individual left the Atlanta Police Department was the lack of a take-home car program, which all of our competing agencies was offering. We now have take-home cars in every district. We continue to do there. Our ACE and Apex unit have been added to that. If you have a secure neighborhood officer or home in your district, you now will see a police car parked there. You will see these cars grow. We have still a little over 100 to hand out in the first phase before we go to the next phase. Our only drawback right now is the number of outfitters that are available. We just added a third one, and you'll continue to see these vehicles throughout your districts and as we patrol the city. I want to talk about an item that was also brought up by Chief Smith just a moment ago, is as we continue to grow the Atlanta Police Department back. You may recall that we've had a sharp drop of officers from 2020 when we were at our maximum to about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and that has started to grow back. We stabilized last year. We're now at a +9 at this particular moment, and we continue to be in this space to make sure that we're bringing the best, the brightest, and most committed to the Atlanta Police Department. We've had over 91 hiring events, both here locally and throughout the country. We can never become an agency that sacrifices quality over quantity, and we're very pleased of the efforts we had to be in this area. As we add the Public Safety Training Center, add the new cars, the enhancement of officers' pay and benefits, which is being driven by the mayor and supported by this body. We're appreciative of that because I go across the country and speak to chiefs who are struggling in this area that aren't starting to see a plus as they grow back to the department. And we are proud of this. You had asked earlier, Commissioner Hillis, whether our recruit numbers are in our numbers. They are, because we still deploy them. They were deployed over Pride weekend. They will be deployed over a Labor Day weekend. We still utilize them in ways to keep the city safe, that they have the ability to protect in that area. So we appreciate you all, what you're doing to allow us to continue to grow the police department back in these areas. We have new strategies working with our HR Commissioner, Commissioner Smith, to start focusing on lateral hires, start focusing on college campuses, HBCU campuses, to make sure that we're bringing individuals with the hardest service right here into the Atlanta Police Department. And then if I can look at our Keep Atlanta Safe initiative through Connect Atlanta, I have 3 more slides and we're done. This continues to be a key part of our crime fighting initiative. Every week at Cobra, I hear a report of an arrest that was made because of cameras, an arrest that was made because of license plate readers, a child that went missing or an at-risk adult that wandered away that was found because of the cameras. So we appreciate your efforts through your respective offices to continue to add to our camera program. We appreciate the work you're doing to encourage your residents to not only integrate their cameras, but to register their cameras. Over in the Emmons Park area, we recently made a key arrest because the residents had all used their cameras that they had of their neighborhoods to be able to identify a person that was active in that neighborhood. Last quarter, as I wrap up and open for questions, we were privileged to honor the civilians and the sworn of the Atlanta Police Department that over the last year had committed acts of courage, compassion, demonstrated their commitment to public safety in Atlanta, Georgia. Commissioner Lewis, this was not by design, but you'll be glad to know that the Officer of the Year, as well as the Purple Heart recipient, both came from your district. The recipient of the Officer of the Year was an officer that on the very first night of this year, we had a large number of gunfire that was occurring around an apartment complex. He went in that neighborhood and recovered a large amount of guns on that first night. And consistently throughout the year, he has one of the highest number of gun recoveries throughout Zone 3. And we were proud to give that officer the Officer of the Year award. And then the Purple Heart winner was an officer, Officer Golden of this department, that was injured when he was trying to apprehend an individual that was threatening a female with a gun, also in District 3, and he was struck by a drunk driver. And after months and months, he has finally returned to duty. We want to thank the Lord for his return, but he was also commended for his duty to our city and working on his own to take a dangerous individual off the street. Despite the injury, there's a picture of Officer Golden with his wife and daughter in purple there, but they were honored also at that event. So we just want to thank all the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department that are working on your behalf, on the behalf of your constituents. Please know that this department is always committed to assist you in any way that we can to make sure we have the safest city possible as we work for one safe Atlanta. But Chairman Hillis, that is our report out today. Open for any questions you or members of this committee may have.
Thank you, Chief Shearbaum. I will defer to my colleagues first. Councilmember Waits.
Thank you so much. Chief, thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work you do. I know we had a massive presence at Pride, and so I am grateful for the security and the support that was provided. I recognize the complexity of the work that our officers do in terms of putting their lives in harm's way. But it's been brought to my attention on a number of occasions that there are a number of citizens that feel that we need more sensitivity training with respect to how our officers are interacting with the public. And I also know that many times when you're dealing with individuals who may be under the influence of alcohol and drugs, that they may be difficult to deal with. So one, what is it that we're going to do to increase sensitivity in any type of training that will assist officers in terms of a more customer service style approach? And I asked the question, I think 2 weeks ago, for the small few officers that we have that have historically been engaged in misconduct. These are officers that have been, and then this may be another conversation for an executive session, if you will. But I think that we have an issue with trust, and it appears to me that the Citizens Review Board doesn't have any teeth or authority to do anything at all. And so what is it that we can do in terms of policy or your office to ensure that we have the right individuals who are on the street who understand the role, and that is to serve. And of course, for those who fall outside of the ladder of the law, that's a different conversation. But I believe that we have a problem that needs to be addressed. And I'm not sure if that's policy or if that's something that will come from your office.
Certainly. I want to start with something you said. It all starts with who we allow to enter the profession, Councilmember Waits. We could cut our shortage almost in half right now if we chose to adopt the state of Georgia's training requirements to be a police officer, which is 10 weeks and 2 days. Our officers will train for 35 weeks before we ever allow them to be assigned to a precinct. It is during that time, Councilmember Waits, we're looking for what you just described. Can they respect who they protect? Are they the right person to go out and enforce the law? Our officers will train as many hours on how to navigate a mental health emergency as they will how to use the firearm, which is vastly different than what the state of Georgia currently has. So we start on day one as a recruit. 30% of our recruits will never make it out of the academy because we were able to determine then that they're not the right ones to protect Atlanta, Georgia. They're not the right ones to wear this uniform. Our training, I will put our training, ma'am, up against anyone in the states as it relates to respect diverse populations. Can we recognize a bipolar occurrence, a person who's in a schizophrenic moment, a person that may be suffering PTSD or is dealing with addiction issues? We ensure that we bring the very best training. If individuals at any point throughout their career, where it's day one or day 29 or year 29 and 364 days, if they show that they have violated the trust of this community, we will address that. I receive a weekly report that shows me what complaints are being received by our Office of Professional Standards. I receive a regular report on training initiatives of this department. My record will show that if we've had individuals that have broken the public trust, that have acted in a manner that it's not a training issue, but it is actually the content of your heart, then this department will move to separate them, ma'am. I will never allow the action of one to be able to reflect upon the action of the many, many that wear this. I depend on hearing from you all if you feel like we've not met that. We work very closely with the ACRB. I believe the ACRB has the same mission that I have to make sure we are a trusted police department, we're an ethical police department, and we're a constitutional police department. And we do meet regularly with the executive director to ensure that we are in line with that organization so we can quickly open complaints that they receive, so we're not waiting for the bureaucratic process to play out. But if they've had the indication that there may be an individual that is acting outside of what is expected by the community and what our policies and standards say, then we will address that. And if you or anyone sees training opportunities, or if you see the ability to change policies to make sure that we stay trusted and good at what we do, this will be an administration that will be open to that. And we are engaged through our accreditation. We are engaged through our involvement with the IACP, with the major cities chiefs, to make sure that we're always looking for the best training that is possible. We train far beyond what the state of Georgia requires, and that is our commitment to make sure that we weed out what you just described, ma'am. And if there's something that you're aware of that I may not be seeing, I'm more than happy to have an offline conversation with you and certainly share with you how we track to make sure that no one is wearing the uniform that should not be wearing the uniform.
Final thought, Mr. Chair. Please. So there was a move or a measure several years ago at the General Assembly to create a database for officers who had been involved in misconduct, and I'm referring to egregious acts is what I'm talking about. What is it that we're doing within APD or the City of Atlanta to ensure that the officers that we're recruiting or bringing in are not coming from Roswell or Sandy Springs or someone else with those types of habits? And finally, for those ones who have been involved in egregious acts, and we have some recent situations like this, for those ones who are still on the force right now, what measures are we going to take to remove them?
Yes, ma'am. We have an aggressive and thorough background check on anyone that applies with the Atlanta Police Department. The state of Georgia does maintain a database through POST, the Police Officers Standards and Training Council. If an individual leaves under an investigation, they leave before they can be disciplined or that investigation be closed, it is flagged for anyone to see if that individual is coming here. If individual is going or else, we report the same thing. If we've started an investigation on an officer and they leave before that investigation can be completed, they leave before punishment can be given, we flag that. So if you go anywhere in Georgia, you're going to see it. We have an obligation to you and your citizens to look out for those flags. If we detect in any background check, right now we want to grow back to the authorized strength of this department by December 2025. I will not take anyone, ma'am, that has a questionable past, a checkered past, or will break the trust of this community. And so you have my commitment on that. I think if you will look at everyone that applies for here and who we say no to, we stand behind that. And if individuals are brought to the attention of this department that have broken the public trust, violated policy, they are held accountable. They start the process. The process requires them to be given their charges. They have hearings that they attend. And if they have violated the public trust in a manner that will be detrimental to the community, we separate them from the department, or we retrain, or we give them stiff punishments. And I can meet with you at any given time to walk through with you that, so you can just see it's not an answer from this podium, but is actually the actions of this police department.
Thank you again for the conversation. And I know we have a ride-along opportunity coming up. I'd like to use our time together to talk about policies to ensure that we have the right individuals on the street. And finally, I'm grateful for the work I recently observed a law enforcement officer assisting with changing of a tire. So I'm very clear that the overwhelming majority of the individuals that serve do an outstanding job to our city. It's the small, minute few that we were referencing that have tainted the conversation and eroded public trust. Thank you.
Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Chief, for coming in today. I had a few things I want to talk about, topics surrounding around lock boxes, HBCU law enforcement programs, and a couple of questions about the GBI. I know some stuff I requested in the last meeting. I didn't see it in here, so I want to make sure I brought that up. And the lock boxes first. I made sure I did some stats before I talk, because we live in a city that APS school board, even I don't have to do the numbers to know 90% of APS is black students. I'm gonna go even further down. 70% of APS students are black. So when you're looking at black students in America are 6 times as more than likely to die by gun violence. We passed legislation in this city council in January 2023 about gun lock boxes. I'm looking around the nation, looking at other police departments working with their police foundation, giving out gun lock boxes before legislation is passed. The police, they know that they need gun lock boxes. We complain about, we had a conversation about Kia and Hyundais. We know that we live in a state where your weapons license don't matter no more, right? I pulled it out, I was thinking about it, don't matter no more in this state. And people rather get caught with it than without it. Then they go to the club, they go to places that you can't take it into, they leave it in their car. This council has done its part to pass the legislation. The funding has been secured. Can you give me an update on gun lock boxes?
And Chief Peak, you may have that on the, so we do have a program, sir, that we're starting to distribute, much like the clubs, and I'll let the chief speak on.
The actual money that was set aside for that, so most of the gun boxes that we actually did distribute came through partnerships and other means, so I don't have the actual update on where we are with the city funding by this body, but it's something that we can go back and follow.
Can the administration help with that conversation? Because if somebody from the administration can talk about it?
So there was one grant that we did get through the administration. So again, that's coming down through that funding of that grant, that JAG grant, and it was a piece in there, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around about, it was gonna come out of about $132,000.
Now, $200,000+.
That was a total, but it was actually a breakdown, if I can recall, and I'd get that legislation and get that description so that we can follow back up.
I just know it's been a whole year, and we Atlanta. I know the issues we have make us feel like we're a smaller town and not a big city. So I'm just watching us. I want you to, the way that you announced the crowbars that go in the car, what's the name of them?
The clubs.
The clubs in
yes.
the car. The way you announce the clubs and the spirit that you announce it, the way our police officer, you can say you pull up at a police station and get it. I'm telling you, the folks didn't ask for the club. The folks are asking for the gun lock boxes.
And I'll get you a more detailed report. I apologize, Councilman, I didn't have that ready for you, but we'll get you the numbers, how they're being distributed, and what those numbers look like.
And we should equate that with black kids being murdered by guns. And we live in a state where guns are just legal. So first, thank you I would appreciate an update on the lock boxes. HBCU programs working with the city of Atlanta. I just so happen to be, our student body I sat on the Alumni Association, and I was a part of the organization that actually created the first HBCU in America with a police academy on its campus. And so when we say that connection, Lincoln University of Missouri is the only one in America with that. I sit on the Alumni Association of that, the president of the Atlanta chapter. And I'm a city council person. So if the City of Atlanta Police Department wants to do a partnership with HBCUs, only one exists, and we have a direct connection. So I would love to be a part of that conversation. And since you brought it up, I would love to be a part of it full out.
Absolutely.
The next one
Appreciate
I
that.
wanted to make sure we talked about was the GBI. So I was looking at on this page, the Atlanta Police Department and your presentation. I was looking at your collaborations, ATF, FBI, GSP, GSU, East Point PD, FCSO, so that's the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, State AG's office, gang unit, from the APD unit, you got gang unit, Zone CSU, ACE, Aviation Intel. The one partnership I don't see is GBI.
And that is not an exhaustive list, Councilmember. The GBI is present. The GBI assists us in 3 key areas. Number 1 is interdicting drugs in our city. We have a partnership with their joint drug interdiction team. They also provide intelligence information around individuals that are committing crimes right here in the city, and they provide investigative support for certain details that we have underway. I can get you a full list of everyone that participates. It's a space constraint. I believe I mentioned the GBI when I spoke, but you didn't see them on the slide. So we will get you a full list. Our partners are both state, they're regional, and then they're federal in composition. We have certain details where one agency may be more engaged that week or over another one, or that month over another one, but we are blessed that we have a partnership that runs the gambit, that makes sure we have not just the Atlanta Police Department, but all of our partners fighting crime in the city.
I'm just going by what's on this paper.
Yes, sir.
Because it looked like to have FBI and ATF and GSU and GSP, but not GBI is a glaring omission to me.
Well, we will make sure they're added there. I'm going to give you a good example of our partnership with the GBI. On Saturday, I got a phone call from the GBI director that said there had been a homicide that was committed in the state, and he thought that they thought that the homicide suspect was actually in your council district. Now, you can go to AJC today and see the story. That phone call on a 1 o'clock on a Saturday caused a number of officers to be deployed to Zone 3, and we had that homicide suspect in custody within 2 hours, driving the car of the individual that he is now accused of murdering. And so it was a phone call from the GBI to this agency that triggered that response by the department. We have a very strong working relationship with the GBI, and us not having them on that slide in no way equates their commitment to serve right here in the city or the manner in which we engage that agency.
And I think the reason why that glaring omission was so real to me is because that's the relationship I wanted to talk most about today.
Right.
And particularly the last committee meeting, my request was that GBI, I'm just thinking about them not being on here. My request was how many officer-involved shootings or officer in custody deaths, I had to learn the correct terminology, and officer in custody deaths are currently open with the GBI. And it wasn't in here, but that was something
We'll get that for you, sir.
and so the follow-up to that is, I'd like to see a timeline, how long they've been open, next steps in the case, projected closure. If they can't give us projected closure, can we look at similar cases to give us projected closures for them? Because the relationship with the GBI needs to be, these are some very strong relationships. I believe you. I believe what you wrote. And so I want to make sure that relationship is as strong because it's not written, and they've been the ones that we've been getting letters from them saying what we can't put out. And so the community want to know about that relationship. For them not to be in this report makes me want to question that about it. I just started writing the moment I saw them not in there. And so can you get that stuff to us, and can we make it a part of this ongoing? I want to make sure that the people of the city know that we're taking this serious. When the GBI gets something from us, we want to track it at least to make sure that the folks know where it is.
Certainly, sir. We can get you as much information as we can that gives you the information you desire. Absolutely.
Okay, and I appreciate you. So once again, gun lock boxes, HBCU law enforcement program. I would be the expert on that since I was there to help create the program, the only HBCU in the world with one. And GBI, I want to know the partnership's as strong as what we think it is, because all I hear them is telling us the releasing of stuff, all I get from them is no. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. We'll make sure there's clarity on that. We got you.
Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief, for your presentation. And in following up from issues that were raised at the last committee meeting, it asked for, I guess, a report or update on the Parks Patrol, and see the Commissioner Cutler's here. And I understand that those issues have been resolved and we are back in action. Is that correct?
So, Commissioner can come up. Sir, we have never stepped away as a department from our engagement in the parks. We patrol at the zone level. We direct at the mounted patrol. That is their primary response. The Path Force is in place. We patrol the parks virtually from our real-time crime center. In fact, any area of the city that has access to our network, which is called FUSIS, we have officers virtually patrolling the parks wherever we go. We engage very closely with the commissioner on sharing data of crimes that may be being reported, and then calls for service. And so we have a strong relationship with the parks. We have our commanders out on the weekends in the parks. I personally make sure I drop into our parks throughout the city because they are an important part of our identity as a city and how we celebrate and move forward through in Atlanta. So Commissioner, you can speak, but we do have a strong relationship that goes on every day in our city, Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Bond and committee members. So over the last couple months, with the ramp down of summer, we have reduced our reliance on security personnel, mainly as we closed the outdoor pools. Those security personnel were dismissed because we no longer had the open pools. However, we continue to provide support at all of our football games. At Anderson at Boulevard Crossing, we provide officers at William Walker Park, where we've had a recent increase in gun violence, both in the back part of the lot as well as the front part. We also have officers patrolling and coordinating on a site-by-site basis as we have hot spots that pop off. We also have an emphasis patrol over at Deerwood Park, and we're working on installing additional cameras at Deerwood Park. All of this to prevent crime from occurring in our parks and coordinating with APD. So yes, it has decreased as we've closed the pools and as we get into a natural cycle of fall and winter. But we are committed to providing a safe environment, and as things come up, we're coordinating daily with the chief and his team, and we're deploying resources as needed.
Well, thank you for that explanation, and just want to thank you both on behalf of the citizens that I've heard from who are in love with this program, that are grateful that it exists and feel much safer in our parks. And I had two major events, or participated in two major events that happened over the weekend in our parks, and the presence was there and was much appreciated. So thank you for that. But I got another issue for the chief, but thank you, Commissioner Cutler. My other question goes back to the issue surrounding the death of our deacon. The mayor stepped in and said that he made revisions to, I guess, what was the policy about having to sign the ticket issue. Can you elaborate on that? Because I've gotten some questions about that.
I can, sir.
What does that mean if
Yes.
a person is stopped? Do they have to sign the ticket now, or do they ask for a supervisor? What happens now?
Certainly, and I think it's very important to note that this applies only to the city of Atlanta, and that the state law still is in effect throughout the state of Georgia that says if an individual fails to sign a traffic citation in lieu of posting bond, that they may be arrested and there could be a physical arrest. So there has been a policy change in our city to be able to say that if all other aspects of extending to the person the courtesy of a signature is met, and the person should decline to sign the citation, that the officers to write refused on the citation and to proceed with the interaction as if there had been a signature there. And so that applies right here in Atlanta, Georgia. There's not a need, Councilmember Bond, to call a supervisor to the scene. If every other aspect is present and you were going to allow a signature, then the officer is to write refused and to continue with the interaction. Now, it's important to note that a neighboring jurisdiction may not have that courtesy. So this is a courtesy that is being extended within the city limits of Atlanta by this department. And I think it's important to note that wherever you travel, other jurisdictions could easily stand behind the may fully within where they're interacting with the citizen.
Well, thank you for that clarification. And also, I want to thank you for the investigation into the incident and the administrative response. I think what you were saying earlier to my colleague about making sure that individuals who don't meet the standard that's being set in APD do not remain. I appreciate you doing that. But at the same time, want to reassure those who are employed by the city of Atlanta, employed by APD, that every procedure was followed and that everybody, and that the rights of that individual, though they were terminated, they got their day. They got their procedures, correct?
That is correct, sir. It is very important to me that everyone on this department has due process. It is a difficult job. That's not part of the job that I take lightly or enjoy. But every member of the Atlanta Police Department will always have due process, Councilmember Vaughn.
Well, I appreciate that, because I know in the past, prior to your leadership, when there were other incidences and officers were removed from duty, they didn't have due process, the community didn't understand that because those officers had been denied why they were returned to their jobs. And it wasn't around the incident, it was around their not having due process in the, under the course of the investigation. So I'm glad to see that the rules are being applied inside and outside of APD to make sure that everyone is getting their due. And if we trust the process under this present administration, we're going to get the fair results that the facts will lead us to. So with that, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And Mr. Chair, I withdraw.
President Shipman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thanks for your presentation. I shared this with you last week in a conversation, but I wanted to share it publicly. There were members of the Pride Planning Committee who were very grateful for the way that the entire APD planned and executed around the Pride event. That is a very large undertaking, as you said, and I think it says a lot about the department and the way that you're undertaking engagement with the community, that the Planning Committee went out of their way to share with me how much they really valued that partnership in an unsolicited fashion, just pulled me aside and wanted me to share that. So I want to thank you and the entire APD team for the way that was undertaken. It is much appreciated by the whole city. Just two questions. One, a suggestion and a question around the Connect program. As I'm moving in the community, I think it's probably time to have another round of sharing with our residents that program and how it works and what the two options are. I think that obviously there has been a lot of participation, but it's been a bit of a while since a big PR push was made, and so I think it's probably time for that. I've had a few folks ask me the specifics around it lately. And I wanted to ask specifically, are there any areas of the city that the Connect program has not covered well, in your opinion? Are there spots that you would say, well, in this part of the city, we'd really love to have more cameras that are a part of that network?
So when you're talking about registered and integrated cameras.
Correct.
Registered cameras, we actually need more everywhere, to be quite honest with you. We still have some concentrations where we have more than others, but not near enough. And registered means you've merely said, I have a Ring camera, and I am willing to be detective for an hour. I'm willing to be part of my neighborhood watch. That if I get an email from the police department, there's been something that's occurred in my neighborhood, I will look. If the police department's looking for a certain description of an individual or vehicle, I will see if I have it, and I will let the police department know. That is the best way to be part of your neighborhood safety plan, and I call it the 21st century version of a neighborhood watch. And so that is merely going online and registering that you're willing to take a stake in your neighborhood safety. The other one is integrating cameras, that you actually purchase the cameras and we can see them in our real-time crime network. We still need more of that. We're working closely with our tactical crime analysis team to see where we need more. We use the budgeted funds to deploy in those areas, and we work with your respective offices to deploy in those areas. So the other one is, if you're listening to your question, you're watching this and you haven't, you're someone that we want to register your cameras, and we just need more everywhere, to be quite honest with you. And I do want to say this, President Shipman, if I may, because I may not have said it when I showed the slide of Pride success. On that slide was the logo of Department of Public Works, Department of Watershed Management, It was on there was the Department of Parks and Recreation, the Mayor's Office of Violence Reduction, and as well as the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. Everyone came out this last weekend to make that event safe. The sanitation trucks you saw along the parade route, that kept us from having a horrible tragedy that we've seen in Europe. We've seen in New York City where an individual has gotten on the parade route to cause harm. And so we had members of DPW that gave up their Sunday for the best of our city. DPW, Watershed Management, the same thing. So I probably didn't say it. I had the logos up there, but it was a city effort that was involved there.
Thank you. Just one other question, following up on, you mentioned Zone 4 and it being sort of the outlier of the trends. It is, if you look at the Zone 4, at least the weekly 41 report, Zone 4 is a little bit of an outlier across a number of categories. It seems that that particular zone has seen some increases in categories where we've seen decreases across the city. Could you just spend a moment talking a little bit about Zone 4 and some of the strategies you're trying to deploy there to bring that rate down?
Absolutely. It's starting with our collaboration with the neighboring jurisdictions. We're seeing individuals that are crossing jurisdictional lines to commit crimes on both sides. So having them involved in what we're calling Operation Deep Freeze, which is our fall and our winter initiative in that area. We've also started doing deployment of camera trailers in the area until we can get cameras up. But something else we've done is the one zone, Mr. President, that doesn't have a fueling station that is ran by the city. So everyone else can either drive within their zone to fuel up or very close by, but not the officers of Zone 4. They were having to drive all the way up to Zone 1 to refuel to Zone 3. And so about 3 months ago, we started the program where every officer in that zone is carrying a gas card, and they no longer have to leave Zone 4 to fuel. They are going to their convenience stores and their gas stations, which actually have a higher propensity for violence, to fuel their vehicles. If this is effective, and we're starting to see some preliminary numbers that tell us that it is, we're going to start doing that elsewhere in the city. So the officers aren't driving to filling stations that are ran by DPW. They're staying right on their beat. They're staying right in the neighborhood where they should be. So that is something that's new. We want to thank the mayor and the DPW commissioner for embracing that. The other area we're doing is focusing on crime reduction initiatives consistently in that area. We've shifted more resources that operate out of public safety headquarters. We are making sure that they're heavily involved in Operation Deep Freeze, that we're focusing on that area.
Good. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Amos.
Sir, Chief, how you doing?
Fine, sir.
Glad to have you here because I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Special detail, special event enforcement, and we can pilot in Vine City, Castleberry Hills, dealing with the events at the Benz. Officers dedicated to parking enforcement, and also it was brought to my attention that parking on grass is illegal but a code infraction. And you guys can't enforce that. It takes a code enforcement person.
Let me look into that, Councilmember. I want to make sure you've gotten correct information.
Right.
To see exactly what can be cited. Is this grass that's on public property or private property, sir?
Private property.
Private.
That may be the
Okay,
trigger.
that may be the
private
trigger. Yes,
property.
if it's on public property, sir, we have more leeway.
Right.
Private property, it may be more nuanced of who has to enforce that.
Right.
And-
But it's perfect with code enforcement up under your leadership anyway. We could throw them on a special detail.
We have a
as
role in
well.
that. That is correct, sir. We have a role in that, yes.
But and we also have, along with the legal gypsy lots in Vine City and English Avenue on event day, for some reason the usage of golf carts. So we have golf carts up and down the street, shuttle buses up and down the street, people up and down the street, and I just don't want it to lead to a deadly mixture of something that we could have prevented. So if we could pull that detail together, pilot it in Vine City and at Castleberry Hills, and probably use it throughout the city, I think that'll be something definitely my residents would be happy for.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
And this is all around the bins, correct, sir? All right.
Before we circle back around to council members, I have a few questions, Chief. First, I want to share just some compliments that I received overnight from a citizen in District 9 and Zone 1. They've unfortunately had to interact with APD twice this week due to some crimes committed against them, but they highly praise the officers for being very professional and doing their job, and was a great interaction, as they said. So just wanted to pass that along. On the APD fleet, a couple things. I know there have been some outfitting issues. How have those been addressed, and what's the status of getting those hundreds of vehicles we've ordered outfitted and out to our officers?
Yes, sir. We recently visited the outfitter to look at what could be done to move them through more quickly. They're working with their providers of the siren boxes, the lights, to be able to streamline that process. Our goal is to get 10 a week that are returned to the city. That is the goal. Right now, we're averaging 6 to 7 in there. It's still not enough, especially when they're needed out and about. We've got a number out already this year. We're already starting to see that. The other thing that's occurring is that a third vendor has been brought on board that will start receiving cars. Those are going to be outfitting our vehicles, going to our tactical field operators, which are assigned in all 6 zones that will become part of the take-home car program. And then we're also looking, as we go to the next bidding process, to be able to open up the restrictions that currently exist around outfitters to make sure we do not have the same challenge when we buy the next round of cars. But right now, it's adding the third outfitter, which is in Cobb County, Georgia, which will be working on our vehicles.
And then another large fleet purchase was our 2 helicopters. Have they been received and deployed yet, or what is the status of those?
So if you have a keen eye and you were watching closely at Pride, that helicopter that was up and above was the next day was our newest helicopter. If you're watching the protest, if you're watching the protest on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that helicopter flew in last Friday. Friday before last, it flew in all the way from Arizona. We had 2 pilots that took possession of it and flew it all the way back. They spent the night in Texas, and they refueled in Texas and Mississippi, and they refueled in Alabama. And so that aircraft is now flying above the city, protecting it. And we will take possession of the second aircraft this week. And then we will be putting the cameras on that vehicle, that aircraft, and fly over the city. I want to just keep this in mind. This city has always been protected by a hand-me-down aircraft that has flown over Vietnam, an aircraft that has flown over Kuwait or Afghanistan, or has been used by someone else. For the first time in the history of Atlanta, Georgia, the aircraft that is protecting your districts, our events, is a brand new state-of-the-art aircraft that can stay up longer, stay up safer, can fly in a manner that we would expect that if we live in Atlanta, Georgia, by golly, we should be protected by the best. So I want to thank the mayor and this body for approving the funding. The first one is here. The second one's arriving within a week. The third one will be refurbished. And the capabilities of those aircraft will now meet the expectations of the citizens of our city. If y'all want to come for a ride in it, let me know. We'll give you all a ride, okay? Okay.
Since they're brand new, we'll take.
Oh, now you will, okay. Yes, we're very happy about that. Thank you all. Thank you all. And when you see that helicopter above your neighborhoods, it's making a difference. We're able to do things smartly, more safely, in a more effective manner.
And when I see it fly over my house, I always text Major Mormon to ask what I did. But and you answered the next question. The plan is to refurbish one of the former helicopters of ours?
That is correct.
And what's the timeline on that?
5 months, 6 months? Yeah, like 5 or 6 months. We'll get that for you, Colin. I don't want to walk something back that wasn't accurate, but about 5 or 6 months, I think. We'll let you know on that.
Might have known this one was coming, but what is the status of our zone and beat realignment that has been long delayed and drug out?
Much longer than I wanted, sir. The institution that we're working with is finalizing some things. We had issues with the way, as I shared with you, that came out. There's still a possibility we could have it in time to influence a January 1st crossover, but I've not been happy with the manner and this has played out, and right now we're reserving hope that it'd be in November. We'll get the response back. But there's been many deadlines that have not been kept, Councilmember.
Don't know if you have them now, if you can give some preview, but I would ask that the following be included potentially in your November November monthly that Chief Peak gives. Would like an update on the status of our 911 call taking wait times for both emergencies and non-emergencies broken down. A update on LMP when it comes to enforcement, and if we have hit all of the audit recommendations yet, as well as kind kind of I don't know if there's much to update. I don't know that we use this ordinance as much as I wish we should or could, but the party house ordinance enforcement. I've had a number of issues I can speak with you offline about 3 particular locations in my district that have just been constant issues with noise, alcohol, et cetera, enforcement. I know LMP has been on one of them and executed some action, but there's a couple more that are just continuing to be pains for residents and myself. So I'll speak with you on those after the meeting if you're going to be around. Now back to Councilmember Waits.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I wanted to direct this one also to Commissioner Cutler, who I know had some very pressing business for our city. I wanted to know if all of our parks now have live cameras in each park throughout the city of Atlanta was the question.
No, not all of our parks have live cameras, but we can provide you with a list of which parks have cameras and which parks are pending cameras.
Okay, and I'd like that by district as well. And what is the time frame to make that happen? And is that a priority? I'm just curious.
For all parks?
All parks.
We take it at a case-by-case basis, and so we start with the parks that have the greatest need due to number of incidences, blind spots, and then we work backwards from there. We are going to be kicking off a recruitment for our Director of Park and Recreation Public Safety before the end of this year, and so that position will then help identify what other types of resources we may need. This may include cameras, it will include additional unsworn officers, similar to like Midtown Blue or ADID and their downtown patrol officers. In addition to that, we're looking at drones and using drones to survey different parts of park property. So it may not be a camera in every park, but it will be safety resources to make sure that we are providing the safest park possible. And already we believe we're doing that by working closely with APD to make sure that we have safe parks.
Okay, and I'd like to break down by district throughout the city of Atlanta where the actual cameras are, and these are the ones that are feeding into the 911 system, correct? And the total cost to put cameras in every single park in our city, what do you think that cost would be?
We can work to quantify that. It will depend on the number of cameras per park, but we can give you a rough estimate of what it would cost to put a camera in every park. And in some parks, it may be 1 camera or 2 cameras. In other parks, it may be upwards of 10 cameras. It just depends on the size of the park, the location of the park, and the issues that the park has.
Right, but we don't know the numbers, what you're saying.
We don't know the number.
Great.
Correct.
So can I request a fiscal note on that? And based upon fatalities throughout the city, I know in District 12, we've had several in Perkerson Park specific, and also we all know the tragic event that happened in Piedmont. So can we also base that upon the historical crime patterns in terms of where those cameras are? Because I know Perkerson Park has had significant activity. There seems to be an uptake in violence among crimes against senior citizens. And I'm wondering, Chief, thank you so much, Commissioner Cutler, I appreciate that. And I'd like to work with you to ensure that we have cameras in all of our parks, and possibly maybe we can have some type of philanthropic effort where someone can donate those, and that is the ask to the city of Atlanta. There seems to be a lot of crimes, an uptick in crimes against seniors throughout our city and the region and state. Is it possible that we can have an officer to visit all 34 of our high-rises to start educating our seniors in terms of crimes, financial crimes, specifically in fraud? I would like to join you in that effort to do that, if possible.
Yes, ma'am. Our COPS unit is very engaged throughout the city. We can easily add that as part of our initiative. We already have some engagement with our senior citizens and elderly population. We want them to be aware of what we see on occasion, and our fraud unit did a very good job working to make sure that we hold people accountable that do target our senior citizens.
Perfect. If I could get a point of contact to join you in that effort.
Absolutely.
Citywide. And lastly, the new aircraft that we have in the air now, what does that aircraft cost? New.
I think it was $4 to $5 million piece, ma'am. Yep. I apologize. I don't have it off. I can get it for you, though, if you wait just a little bit. What's the number?
I'd like to do the ride along in the aircraft, if possible. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Councilmember Lewis.
Chief, I want to say thank you also for looking at Zone 3 for the 2 award winners. And one name I got was Officer Golden.
That was the Purple Heart member, yes, sir.
Purple Heart member, and who's the other person?
Yes, sir. Let me give you, he was the Officer of the Year for the number of illegal guns that he's taken off the street. That was Matthew Brown.
Okay, because I see a picture of Watson right there.
Well, he got one too, sir, but I didn't want you to get a big head that I was all zone 3 the entire time. And let the
no,
other
that's-
come out some members.
I'll tell you.
But he is your burglary officer, sir, who's doing a phenomenal job and was awarded for his efforts taking burglars out of the district.
So I'll tell you, when we talk about investment in officers, right? I met Officer Watson long time ago, and he was protecting one of the stores that ended up in a YSL trial. I remember there was a shootout probably every other day at that store, and these folks were just getting shot at, and there was a camera, because we're talking about cameras that just pointed at that exact store. Officer Watson, in his off time, came and watched the camera and was able to solve the shooting, because it was one kid using his mama car to come shoot up this store. And that was one police officer going above and beyond. So I want to say thank you for making sure you support the officers that are doing the work. And Officer Watson's an awesome officer. The other thing I want to talk about was you're getting it from both sides. I want to say thank you as well for the job that you're doing with the city of Atlanta. When we talk about crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's, when you put out the statement of why the officers were released, to see the Atlanta Police Foundation put out a statement against you, I want to let you know I support you as a city council person. I support you doing your job, and I hope that the foundation learns to support you as well when you have to make tough decisions. I understand that that was a very, very tough decision that you made, a tough way to have to follow the laws of things that was going on. But I appreciate you for standing in there, and you're not by yourself, and thank you for what you're doing.
Welcome, sir. And Officer Watson was the officer that caught the murderer on Saturday, sir.
Can I tell you something?
Just so
I
you know.
apologize. I want to speak on that. I knew that. I knew the moment you said the murder, I saw it on ATL Scoop before you. So the thing with the GBI is always they don't put out videos, but ATL Scoop has the entire video. And so that same exact location I was talking to the fire chief about is the same location that the officer saw the guy going reverse at. Then they followed him and they was able to catch him, the same space that we had a murder 24 hours later. And so with a fire station closing, within this weekend, we caught a murder suspect that we haven't been able to catch that the GBI helped you with, and we had a murder at that location. I've been sending this council committee meetings asking for help at 30 Cleveland Avenue at the fire station. The fire station, not even 30. 30 is the barbershop. Don't go over there. Go to the fire station. We need some help at the fire station, and surrounding the fire station, we have murders happening since it closed, so we need some help. And if we can get some officers today, we know we have open air drug use, open air prostitution, and my kids are walking past it. I brought the mayor to that exact spot. That's the last time he and I met in person. We met at that location. I took my opportunity to have an hour with him, standing right there. And so I'm trying my best, but I need some help. Even right now while we're in here, if we can get some officers to go by that today, I hope we can. 30 is the fire station on Cleveland Avenue, Fire Station 30. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Chief, I think that is it. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you all.
I
Appreciate
do
it.
barely have a quorum, so I just need you to stay in the room and make sure my colleagues do not go anywhere before we get through the end of the short agenda. So,
All right, thank you all.
we do still need to adopt the agenda, so I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Lewis. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda is adopted. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meetings. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. Those minutes are adopted. We'll now take on the consent agenda with claims of favorable and unfavorable recommendation. I'll make a motion to accept all favorable claims, items 1 through 10. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
One moment. The vote is open.
Y'all have any warrants with you?
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are approved. I'll make a motion to adverse all unfavorable claims, items 11 through 48. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
One moment. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are adversed. Moving on to our regular agenda, all 4 of our resolutions are settlements. We'll take those as a block, items 1 through 4. Please read those in.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 1 is 23R 4364. This is a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to rescind Resolution 23R 3962 and authorize payment in the amount of $56,398.25 in settlement of property damage claim of the estate of Henry H. Hines Jr. against the City of Atlanta and for other purposes. Item number 2 is 23R 4413. It's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against defendant City of Atlanta in the case of Audrey Mitchell versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, pending in the State Court of Fulton County, Georgia, in the amount of $13,750, and authorizing the settlement amount to be charged and paid from accounts listed here and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. Item number 3 is 23R 4414. It's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against defendant City of Atlanta in the case of Kalea Mitchell individually and as the parent and natural guardian of minor child JAV, City of Atlanta, the child GA versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, pending in the State Court of Fulton County in the amount of $10,750, and authorizing the settlement amount to be charged to and paid from the fund account number listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. Item number 4, 23R 4415. This is a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against defendant City of Atlanta in the case of Barbara Redding as guardian and next friend of minor children KM and KHA versus City of Atlanta, civil action listed herein, pending in the State Court of Fulton County in the amount of $5,500, and authorizing the settlement amount to be charged to and paid from accounts numbers listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve those 4 items. Second by Councilmember Lewis. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are favorable. We do have one item, I believe, we need to address by adopting a substitute and then holding again. Is that correct, Ms. Linda?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
That is 23-0-1168, item number 7 on held. Does the substitute change the caption?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chair.
I'll make a motion to bring that substitute forward. Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before us. If you'll please read that in.
Mr. Chair, one moment. One moment, please. Sorry. This is the ordinance by, this is 23-1168, an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland and substituted by the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to amend Chapter 10, Section 10-93 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances so as to add a new subsection C to provide an exemption from the distance requirements for package stores licensed to sell malt beverages and/or wine by the package listed in Section 10-88.1A of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for one specialty food shop located at 1370 North Highland Avenue Northeast, 30306, and for other purposes.
I'll make a motion to hold that item. Second by Vice Chair Amos.
Approve the substitute first, Mr. Chair.
What's that?
We have to approve this. Oh, we did? Okay, moving fast. Okay, good.
It's not what the screen reflected. The screen reflected that we had adopted it, but it should have
Yeah,
shown
that's-
substituted. And now the motion is to hold it, and it has been seconded by Vice Chair Amos.
Mr. Chair, we don't need a motion to hold. It's already on hold.
Even if we brought a new substitute in?
Yes,
Front of
that's,
us?
yes.
Okay. All right. I believe that then completes our legislative items.
That's correct.
Questions, comments from the body? All right, if not, we will stand adjourned by unanimous consent of members present. Thank you.